2004. Welcome to this fourth episode of Podcast of the Realms. I am David, otherwise known as the Recorder, and with me, as always, is Carmen.
Hey, avid book reader. Hi.
And today we are covering episodes 13, 14, 15, and 16 of Series 1 of Intro to the Realms. Before we get into the details of the episodes, which we are pairing off today due to thematic similarities, we thought we'd just give a quick overview of what the four entries were and then get into it. Starting with entry 13, which covers the Dragwa, the race of dragon men of Jam'mar.
And then we go to episode 14, which is all about the Wild Realms and how just the regulations going on with it, considering the what's it called? The regular realms?
There are the Wild Realms and the Civil Realms.
And the Civil Realms, and the kind of the differences between them.
That takes us over to entry 15, which is about the Dragon Knights, the mortal servants and champions of the elder race of dragons.
And we go on to entry 16, which is all about the specific travels among the stars and the different forms of travel that they have, which I am really looking forward to today.
And overview done. Let's just get right into episodes 13 and 15, the Dragwa and Dragon Knights. Obviously, our overarching theme here is the dragons.
Dragons, which I can't get enough of, and why I notice this pattern, because I love dragons. Aside from the fact that we have David here, who's written it all, and I know you're particularly fond of dragons too. So first, I want to just point out a tiny little tidbit that maybe only I noticed at the beginning of the recordings. You mentioned during the creation of the Dragwa, and at some point in time, some records went selectively missing about the Dragwa.
Correct.
As a fan of the Library of Alexandria, and if I could find it again, I would. What happened to those records?
I'm sorry, but top men are looking at it.
Top men, huh? It's just
top men.
They're looking into it, I'm sure.
Top men.
But why did they disappear in the first place?
Well, if you consider that a crime so great that one of the elder races got smacked down, their power stripped, and scattered to the winds, do you think leaving the blueprints of how to repeat that mistake would be a fair decision?
It's very interesting. And I'm very curious, noticing your wording. What do you mean it's a crime? Was it a crime of creation, or what did the...
How they created them, or more, what they created them from.
And you're not going to tell us, are you?
I already have. They're dragon men.
They're dragon men. So did the Analar, this is me. I don't know shit. Just so all of our listeners know, this is just me pulling some bullshit out of my ass. But if YouTube censors those words, I think. I don't know.
Go on.
Does that mean that the Analar created the dragon people from dragons themselves?
Amongst other sources of stock.
Dragon men. Anime fusion.
Vivisection on a cellular level, anime fusion.
Considering the Analar can pretty much just think it and it'll happen. Something of the sort.
A variation on a technology created by one of their kind was utilized to do it, yes.
Interesting. And why didn't the gods want this to happen?
This wasn't the gods. This was the gods of the Analar and Dragon. You might say the god of the elder races. Maybe an elder god.
Oh yeah, that'll make sense.
One elder decided to use another elder as base stock for science experiments.
I think there's a couple ethical issues there.
Maybe. Maybe.
Just maybe. We're not suggesting you do it again.
So, that is what happened there.
Okay. Alright. So, at the point of their creation, the Dragwa and the Analar lived on the thing called the Isle of Mists, correct?
Yep.
So now the other interesting point that you make in this episode is that the Dragwa can only hatch on the Isle of Mists.
Correct.
I want to know more sciencey details about this, if you have or have not thought about it.
Only within the caverns in the center of Dragwa Home City are the correct set of at this point they know parts of it.
Okay.
But they are not entirely sure exactly, out of all the variables that exist within those caverns, what combination of them is it that allows Dragwa eggs to incubate and hatch there. They don't know the right combination. They don't even know if they've detected the right combinations yet. But there is something about the energies, the heat, the draft, the humidity, the air type, the ground type, the plutonium levels.
Hold on. The energy types. Bro, the vibe just ain't right here to hatch my egg. I don't know about you, but I just gotta get the right vibe, my dude.
Yes, all the eggs need a proper vibe check before they can hatch.
I love that. But what are the efforts that are going about? Because you also mentioned, like, this is the only place on Jam'mar that they can hatch?
Anywhere. There are efforts to either replicate or spatial fuckery the environment into other places. There has been quite enough effort by the gods and various other Analar to try to do it, and it just hasn't worked yet.
I'd say it's probably their positioning in space, but everything in space is moving anyway, so that can't be a factor of it. But let us remember that that they've probably tried hatching these eggs almost everywhere in space. My brother. Maybe they could try it in the sun.
Well, it's not just a heat thing. Like I said, So, from their reproduction to your next point of interest.
Yeah, so I just, let's see, so that's the Isle of Mists. What exactly, we get, like, a good description of what the Dragwa can do, who they are, a little bit of their history. It's really cool just, like, looking at them and seeing who they are, and as to have said in the episode, they are a very honorable, very noble race. But what do they look like?
They're about 6.5, 7.5 foot tall, fairly
Perfect boyfriend height.
Death by Snoo. Please remember that they, at a baseline, can either run or fly in excess of 20 to 30 miles an hour. Those thighs are thick, and they may not save your life. They may crush your skull.
Now, just for confirmation, they do need a female and a male to make the egg get fertilized, right?
Correct.
Nice to know. So there are dragon women out there, you guys.
Yes. Yes.
Looking forward to the fan art. But go on with your description of them.
Humanoid form generally. Their skin is thick, leathery. The more exposed parts, like the back of the arms, the shoulders, might have even what would look like scales starting to form in the leather. The longer face and snout, fairly draconic looking. Depending on which subtype is whether they are built like a brick shithouse or like a statue of iron. Because the flyers are a little bit smaller. Not really, they're lighter, obviously, to help facilitate their flying.
Mm-hmm.
But you can still bounce a quarter off of any one of their muscle groups like nothing. They're just like, and that's their natural physiology, which makes everyone hate them.
Bruh. Imagine they're bodybuilders.
They don't understand the concept of bodybuilding. Their body does it normally.
I wish.
Yeah. No, they're like, why do you sit there and lift that over and over? To gain strength? You mean you don't just eat?
I mean, there are some of us out there who can do it. It's obviously not me, but...
Hear, hear. But...
if only.
Now, the Dragwa Supremus, which is the rarest of the subtypes, is even bigger. They're closer to the 7.5 to 8.5 foot range. And they are built like a mountain with wings.
Oh my god.
They are huge. They are... everything that the Dragwa as a weapon project probably was aimed towards. But again, we don't quite know why the Supremus and, for example, the Skycons disappeared for so long. Like, that is not a common knowledge thing.
Genetics. Easy.
Kinda.
Easy. It was probably, like, you know, a very recessive gene where, you know, only when the main character arrives are they able to be bred. So, you know, you got your recessive genes and your dominant genes and, you know, the ones that are just triggered by trauma. So,
also known as pink hair. So, from anime, did I cover all the descriptions? I think I did.
Yes, okay. I think so. So kind of going on from that, I wanted to talk a little more about the actual character of the Dragwa themselves. They're very much warrior focused. They, you know, naturally are warriors. They're bred for war and destruction, but now that they're free, they get to do what they want. They just can't, like, you know, hatch wherever they want. But they have a choice of weapon that they use, which I thought was very curious. And it is the chain blade. For those of you who haven't listened to the episode, shame on you, go listen to it. Now, the chain blade is you have your choice of weapon, the sword, the staff, the axe, whatever. And when activated via button or whatnot, it will turn into that specific blade or a form connected by wires and become a deadly whip of blood. Not necessarily blood, but it'll just be covered in blood because, you know, it's a fucking whip with a whole bunch of blades on it. That used to be a sword. So Why did you choose this to be the weapon of choice for the Dragwa?
Well, for out of world reasons, it's the rule of cool. I'm sorry. There we go. Rule of cool. You got dragon men with swords that turn into bladed whips back into swords, all as one graceful set of motions. You can just see it. A dragon man running through a group of enemies and just hitting them with a blade or a whip. Someone flying over doing the same thing from above.
Oh my god.
It's a rule of cool. Now, in universe, the weapon was selected out of many that were offered up for designs for them, for their ability to rapidly and easily adapt and do damage to large creatures, like dragons.
You know, the thing that they're just bred to kill.
Pretty much. So, combination of a usefulness and rule of cool.
I love that. That is just, I think the chain blade is one of the coolest weapons out there. I wish I had the agility to use it. Or the strength. But I don't.
Oh dear God, it would be so scary to try to use one of those.
But it'd be so fun.
Right up till you caught yourself and lost a limb.
You know, that's why you practice first. I mean, it's not like these Dragwa are getting hatched and then handed a chain blade. They're like, here you go, learn how to use it.
No, that's age 2.
There we go. Just a little dead inside. Okay. So the Dragwa, they're cool. They're so fucking cool. They have an equally as cool, what I would like to call their arch nemesis. The people who share their island, the Empire of the Undying Flame. You touch a little on it, but tell us more about it. Who are they? What are they? They're undying, so zombies?
They are a coalition of intelligent undead. They are known as the Necrotai Empire. They existed both in the ancient years, and more recently again they have re-emerged. In the ancient days, they were highly antagonistic to the Dragwa. Something that almost threatened to repeat in more modern days. Fortunately, the Inter-Sovereign Council, Kaisa, was able to step in and go, okay, no world war. So, a peace was brokered. The Necrotai of more recent times really doesn't care that much about the Dragwa. There are a lot of Dragwa with a bone to pick with them, but they'll have to come up later.
You're not going to tell us about that until later, are you?
Nope, but it does get addressed again later in the series.
That is so cool. I'm just really excited because I feel like that could be the best of sitcoms. Me, Dragwa family, slice of lifestyle with my undead neighbors. I'm just imagining all kinds of different kind of situations where the neighbors get into all kind of shenanigans and they're just looking over there like, you're not dead yet. I want to see this. I don't know. I might write something. No promises, but this has potential.
Indeed it does. So
okay.
Noisy neighbors?
From their noisy neighbors, I want to go into episode 15 to touch on now the other side of things. So the Dragwa are born dragon people. The Dragon Knights turn into dragon people.
Correct.
Tell us a little more about the scale fused and the process.
Well, a candidate knight, a potential knight. Basically, you gotta find an old dragon that has the power to actually do this, and convince him to share a piece of life with you. So you guys are probably going to have to be in agreement on a vast number of things. Even if you might not agree on details, you're going to be of a like mind because the powers you gain are vast. And the dragons are responsible for their knights. So, while generally the dragons that do have knights will rarely have them all on a leash, usually it's, okay, you've earned it, happens, go out and adventure. But they have the ability to break the contract that is represented.
Oh my gosh.
That is covered a little bit. But the process is you find a dragon of like mind, get him to agree to do it. I mean, the montage here varies on the dragon. I mean, go do 100 tests of stupidity to just entertain me. Whatever you want to put in here, depending on the dragon. But at the end of it, a single scale from the dragon will usually be fused directly to the chest of the QB knight.
Okay.
This is usually a very, very traumatic event. Death is not extraordinarily common because to get to this point, hopefully they've weeded out all the weaklings that would die from this, but it still does happen occasionally. But after it's done, the knight is, for many intents and purposes, a half dragon of the same blood of his patron, meaning he has their natural biological quirks like walking on a cloud or being able to breathe underwater or not noticing when he's on fire because it just doesn't hurt him. Whatever the individual traits of the patron are. And as they train and develop their connection and the power it gives them, they get more abilities or can specialize in certain kind of abilities and such.
Okay. So, I want to know a little more about the fusion aspect of it. I want to know what happens from that point when, well, first of all, it's like step 1, find a dragon. Step 2, it allows you to call it senpai. Step 3, I'm sorry, just the look of cringe on your face. Step 3, you do its homework. Step 3, you go and do some quests for it. And step 4, they give you a scale. And this scale is like, okay, it's kind of like, you're my blood brother now.
Yes.
They fuse the scale to the chest. What is this? I guess I want to know the sciencey part of it.
They're out. Okay. The sciencey part of it would be it's a spiritual alchemical fusion between the dragon and the 2B knight, represented by the scale fusing with their body.
Ooh. Okay.
So most dragon knights, if you put them under an X-ray, you would see the scale in their rib cage as an additional layer of protection. That flexes as necessary with the ribs because fuck you, magic, it does that shit.
It's a magical being. It's gonna do magical shit.
On closer examination, Dragon Knights more generally classify as a dragon-type creature.
Ooh.
Particularly in abilities of self-healing, damage resistance, things like that. A lot of the draconic traits that make them so goddamn tough are present within Dragon Knight. Super effective platelets, a very, very good recovery system, highly oxygenated blood, you name it, the Dragon Knight. There's probably a Dragon Knight out there that shows the trait, if a dragon does.
Okay.
They used to be the bread and butter heroes of the realm.
Uh-huh. But they're not anymore.
More, they have allowed themselves to be given more time to work on their actual work of dealing with other dragons. Because, as noted in the episode, in general, out of 50 adventures that a Dragon Knight might have, 3 or 4 of them might involve people. Otherwise, he's tracking down, oh, I heard there's a dragon nest of this asshole over here, I'm going to go deal with that. You don't see anybody for that. Like, the Dragon Knights are, in this, they are far more involved in the dragon great game between themselves.
Hold on. Dragon says to Dragon Knight, so, I just heard my brother had an egg nest with his wife. I need you to go destroy it. We don't need any more of my little brother running around.
Technically, you steal the eggs so they can be re-imprinted, but close enough. And yes,
oh my god.
that the dragons used to do that with great regularity in old times.
Oh wow, that could be so hilarious in another comedic, adventurous sitcom. Just dragon families fucking with each other with their dragon knights. I like this. But that's like really cool because Dragon Knights, it's a very different process. Like you have the Dragwa who were created to kill the dragons. But then on the other side of it, as you know, yin and yang, you gotta have your karma. The Dragon Knights on the other side go out seeking the dragon to become stronger, better, and whatever obsession that they have at that point. Honestly, becoming a Dragon Knight is straight up an obsession because you gotta find the dragon. And those are a little, rare to find at this point in time. And once you become that, it's like you become the Dragon Knight. You are a knight once with honor, with the respect, with the abilities of the dragon, but you didn't become a being of war. Like you weren't bred to be a being of war like the Dragwa. And I think that's like super cool because when you look into it, you'll have the different nuances of the character and the ideologies and the different morals as well within the Dragon Knights that is so different where within the Dragwa it's all very similar. And it's just a variety that's super cool. I love it. But there's another thing, if one, kind of going back, if one did want to become a Dragon Knight, how do they go about finding the dragon? As that is the first step.
Well, it would depend on... You could attempt to seek out clerics of the draconic gods and go basically through the church. Maybe you find a Dragon Knight and decide to squire for him to help him, to see if you can help him and him help you find an appropriate teacher or master. You might go to Dragon's Haven.
Just straight up walk through the front doors. Ayo, bro.
It's a city at this point.
Just walking through the front doors, the front gates.
Well, many people that are looking to do business with the Dragon Knights will start their work at Dragon's Haven just because it's convenient. It's neutral ground, so all the Dragon Knights are welcome to show up, and they're not allowed to start fights, or else the Genovans will finish them. But for prospective knights, for specialists in draconic history, there's no other place in the realms where you can get so many perspectives and a chance to actually meet knights of very esoteric dragon lineages. Such as some of the dragons that decide to live amongst the stars. Fuck Jam'mar.
Oh my god. Dragons who can breathe in space.
What's breathing? That sounds like a lesser race thing. The elders were kind of dicks.
You know, that makes sense. But this is the first time that we hear about Dragon's Haven. Can you tell us a little more about that?
As briefly touched upon, Dragon's Haven was created circa 300 to 500 years before the Age of Valor begins by a pair of dragon knights, a husband and wife, Lord and Lady Genovan. And over the centuries and millennia, and through very prudent and decisive actions in that time, it's basically Dragon Knight Central for the planet.
Okay.
The only other city that has anywhere near as many Dragon Knights is Polaron, but that's because a large swath of Dragon Knights are automatically considered to have legal authority equal to sheriffs in the town.
Oh my gosh.
Well, the patron saint of the city is one of the dragon gods, so they get a little bit of leeway.
Just a little.
But
has there been any consideration of making places like Dragon Haven on other planets?
There are get-together places on other planets, but they all are at this point more local affairs. They are, the Dragon Knights that are in this area, whether it be the system, a planet, whatever, they'll all end up, because they're immortal. Oh yeah, Dragon Knights are as ageless as their patrons, which means they don't die of old age. So naturally there will be get-together spots. Morning,
I'm
Fred.
tired of venturing.
Morning, Sam.
Tired of venturing. We're just gonna settle out this tiny little planet over here and make it like our place. Just invite the newbies over, share a cup of tea with them, and teach them how to do the real shit.
Pretty much. There is a very high focus amongst Dragon Knights, as dragon culture is, for direct mentorship.
I love that.
Because the only way you can truly know if your knowledge has been passed on is to see them do it right. So direct mentorship.
Ain't that the truth? Kind of going off, speaking of your random Fred, who are the characters that we encounter both as Dragwa and as Dragon Knights at this point in time? I know during one of these entries there is a little bit of a story that goes on to introduce someone, but what are the other characters that we know at this point who are Dragwa and Dragon Knight?
Lassen and Justique are both Dragwa. Lefty is a Dragwa. Dragon Knights, we have had McKill, who is the guest star basically of the Dragon Knight episode. Haven't had too many other Dragon Knights actually show up as of yet. So far within the entries, but Dragon Knights of fame, There is the Dragon Knight who was captain of the Expedition Draxus, Lord Starwalker.
Lord Starwalker, I see.
Yes. But that would be the roster so far.
I like it. Will we hear more about the Dragon Knights and Dragwa?
As is pertinent and relevant.
I want to hear more about them, and I can't wait to hear more about them in future episodes. Alright, let's move on to space and the travel.
So episode 14.
You open up episode 14 with the story. The story about Sarge being summoned once more into battle and whatever his specialties are. In this convincing Sarge to take up the mantle once more, we are given a very distinct description of a pistol.
Correct.
What is this pistol story? Because it seems just a little important.
It is a little important. It's a very, very old pistol. Looking through the histories, the examples of it that are in museums, like mentioned and stuff, are replicas of that and its companion pistol, because they came in sets. Not a whole lot is known about how they were actually used, because they've been found as artifacts in ancient war caches and stuff. No examples of them actually being used. So it's thought to be a potential experimental super pistol weapon. Like, no one's actually seen one they used.
But this one's been in battle.
This one is very old. This one is one of the originals.
And do we know who used it?
Not at this point, but you'll figure it out.
Oh dear. Angie. For those of you who like to read to the end of the episodes, or the end of the books, as I call it, and where would we be able to find that if we know it at this point in time, the moment that this podcast is released?
One moment. I do believe that would be... Come on. Series 3... Episode 30. Midnight in Dragwa Undercity.
Okay. So if you like to read to the end of the book, go ahead and jump ahead to that episode only after you finish this podcast.
Indeed.
But that just, the setup of the pistol and the story itself is just probably one of my favorite storytelling things that you've done so far, is because you gave us a hook, line, and sinker for the implications of how important Sarge's adventure might be, and I just can't wait to hear more of it. It's amazing. But this episode was about the Wild Realms, and more specifically the exploration of the Wild Realms. But what is something that we can look forward to as we're listening to Sarge's story? Because he's going out into the Wild Realms. What is something that we can look forward to in the exploration and the discovery of it in general?
Well, he will be working to fight pirates that love hiding in the Wild Realms, and he may just come across some very old property that's in need of ownership, we'll say.
I don't know what it is. I want to know what it is.
You'll
Like,
just have to catch up.
working on it. But what exactly is the Wild Realms? We know, like, you have the civilized realms, which is space and planets, and the Wild Realms is obviously more space and planets. Um,
It is a legal distinction.
yeah.
Well, a legal and a technical distinction. Civil realms are all realms that are recognized by the Council for Inter-Sovereign Affairs, otherwise known as
Mhm.
CAISA. Um,
Mhm.
they are recognized members of CAISA and also have on the technical side a public cog gate, which is the core of, as we will get into in the coming up episode, um, is the core of interstellar travel.
Mhm.
So if your system doesn't have access to a cog gate or have a cog gate built down, you're generally considered a wild realm because they can't contact you instantly. They can't send help. So why would they
Whatever.
extend their guarantee of protection somewhere they can't guarantee protection to?
It's the Wild West. Whatever
Pretty
sheriff
much.
is of that planet is a sheriff of that planet and no more.
Pretty much. No, what law you establish there is what goes.
Mhm.
Um, with very few
That's
exceptions, no one really tries to impose law and order on any of the wild realm. They are
mhm.
There are several planets and systems that almost everyone's agreed, yeah, we're just not going to colonize. That will always be a wild realm. Why? Pressure valve. Some people just don't want to live in society. Give them somewhere they can go that's fairly safe. They're not picking out like the lava rocks and going, yeah, we're going to send the elves there. There are so many different planets and realms out there as options. There's a handful that have already been pre-selected to be perpetual wild realms. Plus, it helps keep the black market going.
And most governments thrive off the black market needing to be alive.
Exactly. That's why the gods highly regulate the black market and make sure it works exactly like they want it to.
Those empowered do. I just love the idea that the Wild Realms exist as the Wild West of America and all of that. And the fact that it is specified, it has been regulated to a point where in the episode you say that people can't actively or the rich, the politicians can't actively put things together in a communicative manner of like, oh, we're gonna put together this adventuring group and we're gonna go and find out and localize this planet and make it our next home base. No, they're not allowed to do that.
The nations are currently forbidden from
Mm-hmm.
doing that, where private individuals aren't necessarily. So,
Mm-hmm.
the nation of Domnitra, the humans, cannot send out an expedition. John P. Moneybags the 15th, however, can put on any expedition he fucking wants.
I love that idea because it is self-regulating in itself.
You will notice that with a lot of the ways that Kaisa and the various overarching realms organizations try to work. They build in flex room because it's a lot easier to get mad at someone for breaking the spirit of a rule if you make the rule pretty broad as far as the spirit. So it's like, don't abuse this power in this way, and this way. Someone goes and does it. There are 5 things we asked you not to do. 5.
And you did 4 of them.
Exactly. To where everyone else is like, yeah, like, technically the hunters aren't supposed to be down with doing torture and shit. Sometimes you gotta make a dragon talk. So, I mean, But as
I
far as the Wild Realms are concerned, they are the Wild West. And the thing is technically there is a subset of the Wild Realms idea, the original, actually, manifestation of it, which is the lawless lands on any one planet.
uh,
With very few exceptions, the sovereignties that might govern a planet very rarely will have 100% land ownership. Like,
mm-hmm.
it's not necessarily going to be one unified government of people everywhere. Nah, it's usually just the strongest center of power on a planet because they've got the starport. Because no one else wants to
Mm-hmm.
build a starport, they're too busy doing whatever they want to do. But we need a starport on the planet. That type of deal.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, outside of a sovereignty's declared territories, which are usually not expansive. They don't do to use a gamer term, they don't paint the map. They don't need, unless they need the room for some practical reason or sometimes artistic. Like Analar Arctics, I like that hill, I want that hill. But
I want to take that hill back to my home.
But beyond that, there are usually vast swaths of area that are literally not under any law other than basically inter-sovereign good manners. Don't go running around pillaging or they're going to send people after you. Don't go murdering. They'll probably send someone after you. So most planets have vast swaths of areas, especially between countries, because they figured out a long time ago, people don't like it when you do a lot of execution. But expelling somebody into not necessarily hostile land, no, our enemies don't own that land. It's the lawless lands. They can go off and do whatever they want. We don't have to kill them. Has proven better for the realms as a whole, because several heroes have come out of the lawless lands like, yeah, I got kicked out of this nation, and I'm going to save everyone's life. Heroes come from the most humble of origin. But
I love that. I love that so much. And just having that as an opportunity, as that outlet, that pressure valve that you said, it honestly, we can learn a thing or two from it. Going on to episode 16. You said the cog gates, and the main reason why this area remains the Wild Realms is because the lack of transportation. So, could you elaborate a little more on the cog gates themselves, because they're a very interesting idea, and to me right now as we're looking at it, I get the image of like a portal gate from the game Portals. But what is it in description, sciencey terms, I suppose? What is a cog gate?
All right. Cog gates allow access to cog space, yada yada. When you open up a cog, when you're preparing to travel via cog space, there's a couple variations of how this will manifest. Some of these are stylistic, others are different techniques of doing it. But in essence, a bubble around your vessel or your traveler, if you're just jumping through yourself for a small hop across the planet or something. But what happens is when you set your destination while you're building the bubble, basically like a string gets flung through cog space, which is its own layer of reality, and you latch on to where you're exiting, whether it's another cog gate, a cog engine, whatever your endpoint is. Once you make that link, the bubble can form. And then you let go. And the vessel and the area of space gets pulled towards the exit because technically there is a tiny little hole open on the other end that it connects the reality. And just like if you put a balloon full of water in the ocean and open up the neck of it, ocean's going to push out the water. Same principle, except the ship is in the balloon.
Huh. Interesting. How did you come up with something like that? As the author.
A lot of thinking, a lot of contemplation, because there are some other layers at play here that aren't pertinent to this investigation, this discussion right now. But, yeah. There are a few other factors to cog space and such, but yes.
That's the basics of it.
Yep.
And it doesn't happen instantaneously. You said that when you were traveling from one planet to another across vast distances, it does take a little bit of time. So when you are on a ship, they would provide services that are required at that time for, like, you know, people to exist.
Yep.
But it's faster than the speed of light?
Much faster. Cog space clocks in somewhere at 1,000 pho. Pho,
okay.
Pho, is the Realms terminology for 1 light year. The speed of light is 1 pho. So cog space moves at basically 1,000 times the speed of light.
For all of you sci-fi listeners, just so you do understand, this is above my head, and it is super cool to, like, learn and understand about, but I probably won't be asking satisfying questions. So please, 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 if this is something that you're interested in and you really want to know, like, further details and discuss about that, feel free to leave a question and or a comment, because I'm probably not going to ask satisfying questions for this. And if, David, you do want to elaborate on some of the stuff that you just don't think that I'm asking the right questions for, like, feel free to, because I'm like, my mind is like, wow, this is so cool. I only understood like half of it.
For reference, just to give a scale of things, as current, the cluster in which our story vastly takes place is only about 200 light years in radius. Or sorry, 200 light years in diameter. It's about 100 light years from Jam'mMar herself to the inside of the Gulf. So the fastest ships traveling not using cog space can get up to 200 pho, maybe, meaning that 200, 250, something like that. So going from one end of the cluster to another would take about a year, where cog space could make that trip 5 times.
Okay.
So it is vastly faster. But because you have to have a cog station on both ends, or a cog point at both ends, it's far more limited.
When you say a cog point, you did mention in the story, I feel like, in this story for episode 16, it was very interesting how you were speaking about it and the different kind of ships. What is, or like not the different kind of ships, the updates of the ship that Sarge had gotten, and the different technicalities. That was super cool to listen to. But what, kind of like going back, I'm trying to form my question as it's coming out. What defines a cog point and the ability to travel to it?
A cog point is defined as a system complex enough to actually serve as a receiving point for cog travel, because the critical element is this thing called cognite. They're called the cognati. There's a lot of cog going on, don't?
The cognati, I love it.
but the amount of cognite that is used, like a very, very small sliver of it, can be used to make a communication console. But it won't be able to regulate or link into the energies necessary to allow travel to it. Basically, it
Okay.
doesn't have the bandwidth link to cog space. So ship engines are typically cog point. The ships that can jump into cog space from wherever, because they serve as their own starting point, can serve as someone else's ending point, basically.
So if somebody's out there in the wild realms exploring, and like you've been in communication with their ship, they have a big enough ship to be a cog point, you could jump from civilized realms over
Right to them.
their ship into the... That's so cool.
Yep. It allows for a decentralized travel network if necessary. Makes it really easy to have people make it somewhere in an emergency because everyone has the emergency code. So they all go to the same place. So you only need to have one set of emergency services at one place to take care of any major thing in any sector or system. There are a lot of advantages to the cog space system, but the fact that cognite is extremely slow to produce has made expansion difficult.
How does one produce cognite?
That is a secret that the cognati jealously guard.
So the cognatis are the ones who create the cognite to create the cog gates because they're the ones who who discovered cog space?
It is rumored that they are intrinsically tied to cog space, with theories amounting to that's their soul skate. Or maybe their mind skate. Or something else. We don't know. All we know is cog gates work and they work well. They're safe.
The cognati are the one who do it. Ooh, it's Illuminati. Talk about having a monopoly on something. Holy shit.
But yes, that is cog space. That is the backbone of Jam'mar and Realms interstellar travel.
So going back to a couple episodes back where you explained the giant ships that we had discovered recently and the different the 3 different ships that were used by the Analar, the dragons, and the humans, those were used before cogs. Those were after cog space, correct?
Nope.
It was discovered, or was that before?
The cognati are not cog space was not used as a travel methodology during those times.
Okay.
They used exclusion drives, pseudo-exclusion field technologies, raw thrust.
And then the cognati came around and were like, hey, yo, we got a better way to travel. Here you go, but you can only do it under our supervision.
Well, when the cognati were rediscovered or discovered in the later ages, they were very giving to help the realms because it was what they were helping the greater realms. Exactly.
Cute.
They get. It is a symbiotic relationship. They will always insist on. But yeah, that is the cognati and cog space. You also have exclusion drives, which are they work on similar principles. Except you don't go into another dimension, you just create a vacuum of reality and let reality try to push into that vacuum.
Okay.
And manipulate that surface to create thrust. That is by far the most common large engine type in the realm.
Will we ever meet a Cognati?
Quite possibly. I think have you already know. But yeah, you will most likely see or meet a Cognati in the stories. There's a lot of ground for the stories and tales to cover.
Yeah. Talk about it just in this, and we only got like a small snippet of it. Granted, this is also only episode 4 of our podcast, going over, up to episode 16. And at the point that this podcast is released, there's already a season 3 out. So, wow. There's so much more to cover, and my brain's just like, this is cool. What other points of transportation were touched on in this episode that we haven't discussed yet?
Beyond for interstellar travel, if it's not an exclusion drive or field, exclusion fields basically take the idea of the exclusion drive bubble and expand upon it using artificial means.
Yeah.
And those, because of how more efficient they were, and the fact that they doubled quite beautifully as a small object deflector and dissuader for spaceships, as it covered the ship in a field of basically push stuff away. So when traveling at faster than light, you didn't have to worry about space dust putting a hole through your ship.
Yep, because you may accidentally go through a meteor field or something.
Exactly. But beyond the exclusion drive, cog space, I did go over in brief just magics, which are extraordinarily rare because reaching across space with magic takes a lot of preparation or power. But there are a few people that specialize in that kind of thing, just because if there's a convenience, someone will pay for it. So there is like the gate coins used in the story of so they could move back and forth between places. Very rarely will those take you outside of the star system, if off the planet at all, because of just how hard the magic is to do. But it can be done for the right price.
Anything can be done for the right price.
Pretty much.
Wow, that is all of the questions that I have. I'm just so excited to keep learning more, and we're only at episode 16 at this point, so there's so much already that has been revealed to us that we don't know at this point, that I don't know at this point. But I can't wait to learn more.
And I can't wait to explore it with you. And to all my perceptive patrons and regular visitors, as well as new guests to the library. Before we go, if you are interested in supporting the further growth of the realm, as well as these podcasts and other creation, please visit Gryphon'sLibrary.locals.com. Sign up for free so you can keep abreast of all updates and all upcoming announcements. If you like what you see, consider supporting for as little as $4 a month and help support independent content and get direct access to some exclusive stuff I'm cooking up. Again, that's Gryphon'sLibrary.locals.com. Sign up for free to stay abreast of things, and I do hope everyone has a wonderful day. And by the 9 and 4, be well, take care of yourselves and each other. Say goodbye, Carmen.
And the link will be in the description below. Yee!
Yee! Be sure to comment, like, subscribe, and share this about if you find it interesting. Ta-ta! If you'd like to contribute to the further exploration and explanation of the realms, please consider leaving a comment, a like, and sharing the video around. I read all the comments and make efforts to reply to each. Thank you for helping to grow the channel, and know I look forward to each and every one of your comments. Other methods of support can be found in the channel's description. Thank you for watching.